Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spotlight with Suchi. So, today we have Shatarupa Mujumdar from Shopnopuran Welfare Society. So, I would ask Shatarupadi to introduce her self and tell her all the amazing work that they are doing. So I have known her from quite a long time, and I have seen all the wonderful work that Shopnapuran has done, and in fact, grown so much right in front of my eyes. And in fact, I feel myself very privileged. To be part of such an amazing organization, though I am always probably not able to do as much as I would like to, but yeah, I really hope that I can keep doing it. Shatrupati, over to you. Please tell us about yourself, how you started from your teaching background and how you came to Shopnapur and everything.
Thank you so much, Suchi, for giving us this opportunity to speak and showcase our work. So, I have been a teacher myself for about 15 to 16 years of my life, and I came to this profession of teaching also. Previously, my parents rather wanted me to to join the finance, but somehow the corporate life did not suit me, or I was not very comfortable. So, I shifted to teaching, and that was way back. And I actually did my specialization in pre-primary primary methods of teaching. And although I was teaching in the middle school and high school, but my specialization happens to be there, pre-primary primary, and I was very keen and very happy to teach children. So that was how it all began and continued till 2012 when like we all believe that we have a purpose of our life. So there are times when we really want to look deep into our life, introspect to find out what is the purpose of my life. So teaching was something I was enjoying, thoroughly enjoying, but I realized at the same time that there was something there was a missing chord in my life. Then I realized that what is it that would like to do beyond just doing my classroom transactions and doing my job, which was a very comfortable job, getting a good pay, and there was no hassles at all. But probably I was not happy with all the kind of contentment in my life, and so I just went on thinking like what is the purpose of my life. So in 2012 I happened to reach this place called Hashnabad, and till 2019 we had to cross a river to reach Hashnabad. So I was very intrigued with the adventure that I had, or the day I first went to Hasnabad in 2012 it was. And after reaching there, I just went for a very small event that was distribution of swing machine. And after this event, when the people came to know that I was a teacher by profession, the local people, they all approached me that why don't you come and teach our children? Why don't you uh, do some classes with them, etc. So it was never there in my wild guess that I will be able to really do it, because I have a young kid and everything at home. I had a full time job. So what I started doing is that on Saturdays I would travel there and talk to the parents, talk to the local people, and I realized that these children, this particular area, Katakhali, which is a village, and these children, they are the families are mostly biri workers families. They make biri. Biri making is their livelihood, sustainability. So that was the time when I realized that these children are not going to school, and they would not go to school till they were 10 years of age. And then 10 years, by the time they were in class 7 or 8 or 9, and when they had to do these subjects like mathematics or English or science, they were so petrified, and they would leave and go out of the village to some other place to work. So this was the entire picture which was I witnessed. And then I realized that why don't I open up with a kind of a play school where the children would come and just to play. So since I had a full-time job, I could not myself be present, but there were one or two local teachers whom I had appointed and trained, and those teachers, they started the work. And it started from 2012. I did not even know what is an organization, how to form an organization, but then people told me that you must form an organization and do a work, otherwise this kind of a work will never be recognized, or people will not take it seriously. And that was when I thought of getting a registration done and etc. And that was all. I did not know anything beyond that other than teaching. So in 2012, 2013, it went by. 2014, parents, the number grew from 20, 25, 50, 75, number of children grew. When the number of children grew and more parents were taking interest, it really gave me a lot of satisfaction that I was being able to kind of counsel these parents and send these children to school, because their parents in those areas, they have an idea that how can a child of 2 years or 3 years be going to school, not before 5 years. Even if they have to go to a primary, it should not be more than before 6 years of age. So there was no early education, was something which was beyond their imagination. And I always felt that the children of that region, or maybe probably a larger part of the rural part of our country, was missing out all the beautiful playway methods of teaching, and how I could instill in their lives that kind of teaching environment where they would fall in love with the school, because the child has to be connected to the school. Otherwise, the child will never feel the pulse, or never feel the encouragement to come to school, study, and connect with the subjects. That's and 2015 parents, we grew from nursery, LKG, UKG to class 2 and then 4. So 2015 it was still class 4. And then parents came and started telling me that, ma'am, why don't we start thinking about, during that time, our mainly it was like a support school, and the subjects were taught were all vernacular, all in vernacular other than English. So vernacular was the main medium of instruction. Then in 2015, some of the parents said that the English and all the methods that you have been teaching have been so encouraging. So why don't we think about having an English medium school? So thinking about having an English medium school was a challenge, because you don't get teachers who can really deliver the kind of English medium background of teaching is required.
So
As a result,
before we go to that part, so when you said that you were already a teacher, you were doing a proper full-time job, you had a family, you had a kid to take care of. So from going to every Saturdays, how did it grow into a full-fledged school, and how were you still shuttling back and forth, and how were you managing? Now, this is something because, I would like to say that where you said that everybody has a calling, has a purpose, and I totally relate to it, because if I say when my graduation years, I did something very different. I did fashion designing, and then now what I do is, probably I have taken so many 180-degree turns that now people are completely confused as to what I do and why I do. So I guess that's the calling. There are certain callings that we need to pay attention to, and if we don't pay attention to, that's what happens. We keep going around in circles. So when you realized your calling was always still education, was always still school, how did you still manage to, shuttle back and forth, or, do this kind of thing?
so determination, an invincible spirit which works in every individual, all of us. Somewhere we nurture it, and for some who does not, ignore it. So that was the determination to contribute to education. As I was saying, that this just a classroom going, teaching to a particular school, getting a good pay was not that was giving me satisfaction. I always felt that as a teacher, uh, I should be able to contribute more to a child's life. And rural education was something which I would read continuously, that it was in complete mayhem, which is still, I mean, now though the rural education probably doesn't exist, because the schools are closed for more than 2 years now, almost 2 years. So I felt that children had so much of potential. Children had so much of. I have seen children, just because they could not speak in English, they have somewhere their life has fizzed out. A complete one life has fizzed out. So I felt as a teacher, if I do not give back anything to the society, then why did I do this profession? Because I strongly believe a teacher's profession and a doctor's profession is a person that we have dedicated a life to the service to the people. Here, when I proclaim myself as a teacher, so I am here to give. my
I
service.
agree.
And
I think
so I
the
was,
professions where you actually put the people you are dealing with first, and then you think about your own self.
and somewhere when you are working in a private school, you don't get that scope or that opportunity, because you are, see, you're nurturing children who are already coming from a background which is fair, good, affluent. They have all the means. You really don't contribute much apart from certain areas. But when you are dealing with these rural children, and you find that these children are absolutely at par, when you, after teaching them or grooming them with any good school in Kolkata, that is the satisfaction we get as a teacher. That yes, we have been able to contribute to a child's life to this extent. And see, as far as this going and coming is concerned, or how I made it possible, truly I cannot answer to this till date, because there was certain kind of a force which was acting behind me. So I would take the train of 6:20 a.m. on Saturday mornings and reach there by 8 o'clock and start the whole day's work and complete it and take the train at 5:20 from there and come back to Kolkata. I would travel by local train and go. My first experience in life, because I've never traveled in local train. I never thought in myself also that I will be able to continue this for years. Till the time it was a lockdown, I would travel in local trains.
So, what
And see,
support did you receive from your family? Because when you were going back and forth, I think that we should at some point highlight their contribution, or also, you know,
absolutely
where we are able to do things that we wish to, so because we have some kind of support or some kind of an understanding.
right.
So
I must say, in this case, I got more support from my in laws than my own parents. My parents were just not happy with my thoughts, that because they felt there was no need for me to do this. Why was I harassing myself so much? One day or 2 days of a holiday from a week, why was I taking it away from my family or for my kids? I could not explain to them what was it that was making me move. It's that certain kind of an invisible force which was working behind me. But I would really appreciate my in laws in this case. And of course, my husband, undoubtedly, without whose support, I would not have been able to reach over here. At times, he did complain that I was not been giving them sufficient time. But then he realized that the mission I had undertaken, I was so much convinced with it and determined. He knew that she was doing something for a purpose. It was just not a holidaying. It was just not going out on a weekend or a Saturdays and thinking, oh God, I'm going to shrug off my household chores and I'm going to go there and do some other work. It was not that. He realized that there was a greater purpose to this. And of course, my in laws, like, they never, the biggest point is that I have never stayed away from my family or even spending a night away from my house. I mean, we could not think about it also. But when I go and I stay there for 2 days or 3 days and I do my work, they exactly know that she's absorbed in her work.
true. I think when people
So,
start identifying with your purpose, I think I have been hearing this very often in the past few days, probably because I believe it in myself now more than ever, that when you are able to connect your purpose to somebody else, when you're able to communicate it to somebody else, it automatically, it's like a miracle that starts working. First is you have to be convinced with your purpose, and then the second point is convincing others with their purpose, so that it becomes a fruitful mission that we are, that you are kind of going to. So now coming back to the Shopnapuran society, what obstacles you definitely faced? A ton of obstacles, I'm sure, going into that remote area, convincing people to start something, hiring teachers, as I think you were just about to tell us that. So hiring teachers, or asking people to donate, or in such a remote area, how are you going to teach the children from building? So I have seen Shopnapuran going from a hut to getting into the works of cemented building, which kind of gives such a wonderful feeling, which really cannot be expressed in words, or cannot be communicated unless you have actually seen it and you feel that in yourself. So how did you go about from that, like you said, so from weekend classes to a to building huts, to building mud houses, to leasing out a plot and asking for donations, to getting into a proper structured building. How was that journey, and how would you describe that, that race towards it?
It is challenging, definitely challenging, but then every challenge is an opportunity too. We really need to identify the opportunity, because when in 2016 the number grew and parents started telling me that why don't you think about a high school English medium. So that was the first time that that seed of hope was planted in me, and I felt, yeah, that's good idea. That was the time when I spoke to the committee, and the committee said that you cannot think about having a school building if you don't have a land. So the land was the first target. So how do we get a land? Only if I have a land, I can think about structure, because no organization will help you for a land. So that was my journey. Then I started looking for, see, I did not know anything about fundraising. Fundraising was fundraising, documentation, organizational structure, programs, projects. All this is like an absolute different chapter of my life, which I have learned in my course. 2016, when we started working with child protection, I first went to the West Bengal Child Commission, and we became a part of the platform. And after that, I realized that slowly and steadily, I started, exploring all the possible means how I could actually come up with a land. Then in 2018, I resigned from my work, from my job and my full-time job, because then I told myself that I give myself 2 years of time, and all the after retirement benefits, I actually gave it to the organization, because wanted this land to come up. And I told myself that 2 years is the time when I have to tell myself, because if I do not, if I have to create an absolute this dream come true, Shapno Puran, fulfillment of this dream, I need to dedicate my entire time to it. It cannot be any more this shuffling. That was a very big decision, but I don't take long to take decisions. I'm very quick with it, because I'm very I tell myself that the consequences, you have to fight it out. So I work in that manner. So it was 2018, and in 2019, 18 was the first time that we got the CSR of Kolkata Kids Foundation. That was a huge break for us, because the first time our work got recognized and it was showcased, and people came to know that this kind of work is going on, and people came to know that there is a place called Hingolganj. Nobody knew before that there is something called Hingolganj. So the fact is that after that, in 2018, 2019, I was first time chosen as a woman change maker from Bengal by Global Action on Poverty. When I went to Bangalore to undergo this entire training, MILP training and etc., and we went to Sabarmati, and there was an absolute after the training, they had a big showcase of our work and all this. So there were 350 organizations who had participated, and this was our first time that our work was going out to the major mass, to the entire pan India. So it was a big break for me. And many people came forward after that, understanding our work and the kind of education work with education that we were doing. And in 2019 itself, this Roundtable India, they got in touch with us, coming to know that this kind of work is going on. They came in touch with us, and we got the building. The building started. But then again, a challenge. As the building started in 2020, February, everything again, the world was into a different situation. But like our committee made it a very big, a lot of impossible into possible, that our work continued even during the lockdown. Our work continued. We took permission from the local administration. All these laborers were in the site, they were staying there, and they were doing it. So that is how it has been from step to step. We grew from a school of 50 to 75 children today to a school of 350 students. So, and every time, every challenge came, I took it up as an opportunity. And I felt that, okay, let this challenge be there. Now I have to come out with solutions to the problems and see how I can do it. Like when we went on for this uh, lockdown, and for the first thing, 16th of March, the lockdown started. And the first thing we did is that we tried to find out how we can go online, because doing online teaching in Sundarbans was not an easy task, because all the children, they do not have any uh, exposure to Androids, and they do not possess any technological support. Moreover, this
To that, how did you manage, to continue teaching during this? So it's not just teaching. So probably teachers can manage, the handsets or laptop or an internet connection. But how are you going to give those many handset or those many equipments to the children who cannot really have smartphones? So smartphones nowadays, everybody probably can, everybody, most of them has, but the background that you gave, that they are BD worker children's, so probably not many of them have. So then how did you go about that's what I was actually coming to.
yeah. So what happened is that as soon as the lockdown started, we made every class teacher was being asked to make a schedule, like how many children have a gadget and how many do not have a gadget. So it was almost 50-50. 50% students, they had gadgets, and 50% did not have. So the 50% who had also had a challenge that they had only one phone in the house. It was with the father, and the father would take it away for work. So, and there was no access to any other gadgets. So that was a challenge, number one. Number two, the children who did not have any kind of gadgets, or if they had, there was a network issue, because many of them are living by maybe near the borders, etc., and so there is a network issue. So every problem was dealt, that we started doing worksheets. When these worksheets are being done, what we did is that every 15 days the worksheets were rotated. So the children who were attending the online classes good enough, they were attending, and the children who were not attending the online classes, they were all given worksheets. And after every 10 days, these worksheets were rotated. The old ones were taken back and the new ones were given. This was a process by which where the children were always engaged in the school curriculum or school work, so that they were not out of the school thought. Moreover, there was one big plus point which we realized, that the mothers took a lot of interest, particularly the mothers who were attending the online classes or the teaching. They were very interested, and they would definitely make it a point to sit with the child to see how the child is doing. Number one. Number two, we saw that many fathers also started taking a lot of interest, because they were at home and they had spare time to be spent with the family. They were taking a lot of interest in the child's education. And then we realized that the parents who do not have that minimum background of guiding the child, they were very keen to get the worksheets, and the teachers would actually train them or groom them or instruct the mothers how to do these worksheets over the phone. Even if it was not an Android phone, the other phone also, the small ones also helped. In this way, the work started, and the response was very good. 60 to 70% of the children responded. Then came Amphan. So the Amphan was during COVID also, we started giving out rations. As you know, like about 13,550 kits we have given out till this January. And that is ration kits. And other than that, we have also given out almost 76,100 meals during Amphan. So our COVID relief work was going on when Amphan struck last year, 20th May. And after Amphan, the whole thing changed. That again, see, this was a big challenge. Again, a big cyclone for Sundarbans. But this cyclone gave us so much of opportunity to enhance our momentum of work. Really can't tell you, because we reached out to areas where we could never think of reaching out. And what was it was not only serving meals and helping with ration kits and etc., that it helped us to get associated with those communities in various layers. And when the local administration came to know that we were doing so much of work during Amphan, and also that our education was going on continuously, we realized one thing, that the fact is that the they themselves called us and told us that why you are just in one place, why you are not going on for branches. And they gave us place, and we came up with 5 branches. Now we are running 5 branches in the different locations of Hinkalganj with an average student of 70 to 80 children.
So
And
again, so how did a school, a non-profit that was started to educate children, went into all kinds of relief funds of COVID, or two cyclones West Bengal has seen, Amphan last year and Yas this year. So how did you think about, increasing your work from education to relief funds, and ensuring that people are getting their basic necessities with them? So how did all that fall into place?
see, as the lockdown struck, because we have a lot of parents who are daily wage earners, who are BD workers, and they were facing a lot of financial constraints, extreme level of financial constraints, because everything had closed down by that time. And they approached us that, can you help us with some ration, this, that. That was the time when we started looking out for donors who would support us with ration kits, etc. And that is how it all began. And during Amphan, seeing our work, and somehow people just approached, people just came,
Right.
they just willingly came forward to support. And that is the reason that we have been able to serve today. If we are serving and we are trying to
People coming forward to help organizations. I mean, people who were not able to go physically and contribute have actually come forward and done a lot of their bit to help the organizations that were doing voluntary works. So definitely. So now coming back actually to something that you said at the beginning of our conversation about being about the parents being BD workers. The reason I'm going back is, so you're doing all, you're giving them education, you're giving them relief, you're giving them food and all kinds of support that is necessary, but do you have any plans, or have you thought about how, so BD is definitely toxic to the person who are making it, and the people who are going to consume it are also them, are also, belong to that part of the society who are going to consume that raw tobacco in such a crude form. So it is probably doubly toxic for them when they are actually making it, stuffing it, and the children are playing around there, which is not safe. They can anytime, fall prey to it, and also they're consuming it later. So is there any plans to, probably it would take a lot of work to shut down those factories, or things like that, but is there a plan in action how to relieve them of,
we are doing
shift
we
them
are
to
doing
that?
skill training. Yeah, we are doing skill training for the mothers.
Mhm.
So tailoring, poultry farming, kitchen garden, and all these things we are actually doing for the mothers. So basically, we are giving them all skill training so that they can shift. They can actually shift to a livelihood which is much more healthier, and which is better, and also economically can give them a better support them than making BDs.
Okay, that's great. So anything that you want to add, that you want to leave a message for people who would be listening to us, or who are listening to us, or
Yes, definitely. Would really love more and more people to come forward, support us in every possible way. It's just not about donations. It is also about donating their time. It is also about donating their time, and many ways they can help a child to grow, capacity building of teachers, capacity building of children, their parents. All this is there. So in any form, if they come forward and support us and propagate our work, that will be extremely beneficial for the organization, for the children of Sundarbans.
so for now you're going to be so Sundarbans is where your focus area of work lies, right? And that's going to go into all parts of Sundarban. So definitely, everyone who is out here listening to us, We would also leave a link to where they can reach you out and how they can help you out. And I really, really hope, and I'm sure actually that many people would join on this wonderful journey and on this wonderful work. I am absolutely always there, and I wish you all the best.
Yes, and we really look forward for you to come back and spend some time with the children, hold some workshops, as you always been so innovative and doing such wonderful work with the children. So
Yes,
let's hope.
somehow, so these Google Photos, so we have backup in Google Photos, and sometimes, just random memories keep popping up. And I saw those photographs from last year, and I was loved last year, last to last year, and I was wondering, oh my God, is it already been 2 years that we have kind of lost touch with the community and with going and people and mixing
Mm,
together. So definitely looking forward to coming back. But till then, virtually, I'm always, if I'm not physically
yes,
there, I am
surely.
really definitely there.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much for having us over here. We're really grateful.
No, no, absolutely my pleasure. I started this platform to have more and more people who can come and just uh, without any no paid media and no paid branding that you pay an X campaign and then you get focused without an actual work. So there are a lot of people kind of existing that, okay, not nothing against them, but yeah, my point was to have people who are actually doing good work. And I mean, right now this is one of the ways that I can help uh, in spreading the word. So thank you so much, Shatrupadi. So I will have more, so thank you to everyone who is watching, and we will have more and more such wonderful people with future episodes of Spotlight with Suchi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.